Ladies and gentlemen, big hairy news.
Hey, kia ora koutou, e te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Kia ora, Chewy.
Kia ora, Pat. Look. What's this?
Hang on.
What's this?
I was looking a little bit dark there. Oh my
What's
gosh.
this?
Oh, did you find it? Or is it a new one already?
No, this is my new one.
Wait,
This
you
is my
only
new
ordered it
one I wrote.
yesterday.
I applied for this on Friday evening.
Yeah,
I got a call about it Monday afternoon,
yeah.
and it was in my hands first thing this morning. I'm
Hold
kind
on,
of
are we-
impressed by that.
Are we allowed to look at it? It hasn't got any identifying things like, but it says Aotearoa. You've got one of the
On
ones.
front. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
We're going.
I mean,
we're
I had someone on Blue Sky go, "Oh, you didn't need to do that. It's going to be ages until they run out of those ones." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's a fringe benefit that I have this for 10 years if they do
Yeah.
manage to change the orders of the names on the passport." But yeah,
yeah. I was thinking. I've seen a few people.
just in
I've seen a
case I
few
lose
people-
it again, it's just down here.
I've seen a few people doing this because apparently there's no legal reason you're not allowed to put a sticker on the front of your passport. And so there are some people designing the front of the New Zealand passport and putting Aotearoa in it for when it's ready. And I thought, we print stickers. Sounds like a good idea. The missus and I are planning on going to Gold Coast middle of next year. And so we're going to get new passports end of this year so we can definitely get the Aotearoa on them as well. Because you know what this government's doing? Like those horrible last lot. They're dividing the nation based on passports. There's going to be the Aotearoa passports and there's going to be the not. And they're going to make us fight up against each other. And there's going to be two classes of people. There's going to be the upper class with Aotearoa and all the others. And it's this government driving the nation against itself. Was that a fair? Was that okay?
Fuck, you went full talkback bait there.
Oh, kia ora whānau. We won't mess around tonight because we've got a couple of big old interviews
show.
coming up. Big show. It's a really
show.
big show. In a few seconds, from the Greens, Huhana Lyndon will be joining us to talk about the Pae Ora Healthy Futures Act. Very concerning, some of the things of this, and very low key, which it shouldn't be. That's a part of the conversation. And then Dr. Gary Payinda sent me a message today, bringing our attention to a news story out of Dargaville, I think it is. I'm just going to bring it up so I can make sure I get it right. Where at Dargaville Hospital, patients are asked to sign consent forms on having no on-site doctor. So under this government, we're going doctorless hospitals.
Oh, holy shit. Look, I don't even like using the kiosks at McDonald's. I don't want a self-service hospital. That sounds pretty fucked.
And ironically, I was recording Craig Rennie's podcast this afternoon when I started looking at this, and Craig said very straight away, it's against the law. You know, it's illegal to ask someone to sign away their rights, their human rights. So he was like, it's not legal to ask people to sign this. So we'll delve more into that with Dr. Gary. He's always very low key and calm, that man. So I'm sure it'll be a gentle conversation about healthcare in New Zealand. And then, of course, we've got to talk about about old mate Judith.
Look, the money will be found because it has to be found.
And her toy helicopters.
So it's a lot of money, but it's needed.
Yeah, because, if the money's needed, they can then find it because it has to be found. Those teachers and those nurses. See, the thing is, you don't understand people. You don't understand that's not needed, that money. It's not needed. But helicopters, that's needed. So, of course, it's going to be found. So we'll have a look at that. Chewy, we've got guests. We can't take too long, but do you need to have some kind of...
No,
breathe out first. Are you okay?
I'm just going to pre-warn people. I don't think people are going to be happy with my opinion when we get to that story. But we'll see if I can defend it against my own chat. But yes, I will be circumspect. We've got a lot tonight, so throw away.
Let us welcome to the show from the Greens, the last person in Wellington, supposed to turn the lights out when she goes. She's the last one to leave. It's Huhana Lyndon. Kia ora, Huhana. Thanks for joining us.
Kia ora, yes, I am the last person in the office.
Yep. And you're going to turn the lights off. Do you guys have to lock your own offices, or does security come around and do that at the end of the day?
Security will come and knock on the door and go, what are you still doing here?
Right. Yeah. And you go, just talking to the boys, and it'll be fine. No one will worry. Now, we have, we're good friends here with Tanya Waikato, who brings every sort of issue forward, and she's talked a bit about the Pae Ora situation. I being no expert, we are the dumbest in the room. A couple of rodeo clowns from Dunedin. It's fantastic. I decided this afternoon to do a bit of a search around, just make sure that my mind was clear and above where we were at. There is the odd article out there on the Pae Ora Healthy Futures Act. The government is telling us that it's going to ensure the health system is focused on delivering better outcomes for patients. But when I semi-understood what it was about, I am shocked at the lack of coverage. In all sincerity, like the last 3 months, if you Google it, you almost get nothing in the Google search other than the legislative changes or actually government documents. You have to click on the news tab, and even then there's a couple. Really, really surprised at how low key this is. So I think we really do need to give the audience a heads up. Tell them what it's about, because we don't want these things to slip through at 11:30 on a Friday night under the cloak of darkness, which is sort of happening at the moment. So it is the Pae Ora Healthy Futures Act. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so what we have in the health system, and I'm the health spokesperson for the Greens, is like every day there's something bad in the health system. So we're getting layer upon layer of bad stories in a system that is in crisis. So we can't turn a blind eye to what is happening. And so it's awesome that you're going to be discussing, doctorless hospitals in Dargaville, but every day there's a drama in the health system. So, we stand on the front line with our nurses and our doctors who are protesting and striking. So for this type of change, and this is the Pae Ora Healthy Futures legislation, this is actually the framework and the law that guides the entire health system. It's kind of been buried and been moving very quietly through the House. And I was saying when I was doing my speeches on it, it's like a thief in the night, that it's happening so quietly that people don't see it's coming. And I've referred to it like the Regulatory Standards Bill Health, because the fundamental changes that are being made in the Pae Ora Healthy Futures Amendment legislation is fundamentally what we'll see if the RSB goes through. So Pae Ora Healthy Futures is visionary, really. It came through the vision set by Sir Mason Jury. So Pae Ora is about healthy, thriving individuals, whānau, and community. Like it's a Pae, the Pae is in the platform, and Ora, to be well. Like it's a simple formula in terms of looking at community care, targeting populations, and looking for equity in health, basically, because not everyone starts at the same start line. So how to provide equitable care, whether you're a whaikaha with disabilities, if you live in the far north like me, or deep south, if you might be takatapui, rainbow community, woman, all sorts, Māori Pasifika, there's space for all of us within Pae Ora legislation. Now, when the minister gave his announcement that Cabinet had approved this array of changes, the repeal of Pae Ora Healthy Futures, he said it was about cutting red tape and, making it clearer for everyone, which I absolutely debate, because what don't we know about healthy, thriving individuals, whānau, and community? Do we not realise that not everyone has same access to quality, timely healthcare across, the motu, Dargaville, for example? So these changes are significant. whereby the minister is repealing huge chunks of the legislation and changing the name. So, you know, with this government, we're going to go from Pae Ora Healthy Futures to Healthy Futures Pae Ora. So that's horrific in itself. But within the legislation, there's like the health charter, which is called Te Mauri o Rongo. And this health charter was developed alongside the workforce. And basically, it's like your safety charter for all workers within the health system to know that you are going to be protected, looked after, and your work conditions will be awesome, which is what we hear from our nurses all the time that they're being undermined with. So by removing the health charter, which was developed alongside the sector and community over a number of years, same with the whole Pae Ora thing, it came out of a big review. You know, unions, everyone was involved. That's taking away the worker safety, environmental stuff. Then we've got the health sector principles. And this is another section of the legislation that focuses basically on equity. And so equity is about targeting populations that might need additional support, like I shared about women or those in the disability community, quality, timely, accessible healthcare for those in need. And so Pae Ora came from a big system review, and also the Waitangi Tribunal had the Y2575 tribunal hearings, and a report came out. So there was a lot of evidence base behind Pae Ora being established. It's transformational, really, and that's where the Māori Health Authority came out of it, and this legislation, and all of the workings to bring to pass the vision of Tā Mason jury. And it's so disappointing because we're seeing the unbundling of it in this amendment bill, whereby you're disempowering iwi Māori voice, which was the iwi Māori partnership boards, which were established. There's 15 of them across the country, and they were to be a part of the health infrastructure to work alongside councils, providers, and community to basically strategically commission services for their district. And there's 15 of them, and they're now being reduced to providing whānau voice. A Health Māori Advisory Committee, the HMAC, is now going to be the one single voice of Māori, strategic voice across the entire health system. So that's a ministerial appointed committee versus the iwi committees that were established through a big process. So as you can hear, there's like tons of pieces to the legislation that are all being unbundled and repealed. And we just closed submissions on Monday. And I'm thankful that PHOs, Health Coalition Aotearoa, GPNZ, all the unions, community, iwi Māori partnership boards, everyone loaded it up. So we got nearly 1,800 submissions, which is pretty good for a quiet bill. And so thank you so much for really coming in strong to support the importance of what Pae Ora was meant to be.
You mentioned the RSB and you like it to it. It's akin to the RSB. I think about kind of what I hear you saying when you describe Pae Ora is that it's kind of the foundational or the thing that upholds the rest of the health system, and I guess the policy and practice of that health system. So we got told by several people that the Regulatory Standards Bill would sort of impact every law that came on the books from here on in, and several that have already been. So are we to assume then, when you make that analogy or that comparison, that you're saying every law, every policy, every decision from within the health system from here on in would be affected by the changes that they're making to this bill now? Is it the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when they change this fundamental legislation that basically holds up and underpins the entire health system, you will see a fundamental change away from an equity lens and thinking about populations. And now the minister is always talking about patient health. And this is taking it back to basics. And we're going to look at the patient. And so it's individual care rather than looking at communities, looking at the bigger picture in terms of what binds us together and what are those determinants of health that impact across New Zealand. So these are the fundamental building blocks of health and wellbeing for New Zealand, and it's being unbundled by this minister who's focused on targets. So everything's about targets now in the health system.
Yeah, we've identified that before, as if it doesn't have a number at the end, they can't understand that it might still be a valid outcome. If it doesn't have a number and a decimal point, they don't seem to be able to figure out. For example, Mr. Luxon, every outcome that he wants to aim towards has a dollar symbol at the end of it. When you hear him describing anything to be, this is his KPI, or this is his outcome, if you break it all down, it's always financial. It's about earning, it's about wealth, it's always, his outcome has to be linked to a financial outcome that he has to decide is the good one. Because there might be some people who don't care about wealth. There's another thing that they think is financially successful for them, but for him, it's always about money, and it's always about sort of what you would expect the wealthy to see as success. Sorry, you were saying.
Oh, no, and it's no different to the way with which, the building blocks of the public health system are being eroded by these changes. And we can see the creep of private healthcare becoming now the alternative in terms of trying to alleviate some of the pressures, because we've underfunded the health system so much that the easy to access procedures can be pushed over to the private health sector. And then those of us with comorbidities or multiple issues, we have to sit in the public system and hopefully get the treatments that we deserve. And that's the thing too, is that it's way out, this whole change is way out of step with what even the minister has just released, which is called the New Zealand Health Plan. And that New Zealand Health Plan is 18 months late, and it was just released this month. And it's meant to take us from 2024 to 2027. And when you read the New Zealand Health Plan, and you'll have to Google this too because it's been very quiet, the Auditor General came out really strongly criticising it in terms of it not having enough content and real meat on the bones in terms of the measurable outcomes for the health system, that it looked like a Dr. Shane Reti health plan, retro from 2024, and it's forecasting out to 2027, and it refers to absolutely everything that Minister Simeon Brown is deleting. So, you can only make assumptions that they're releasing a Back to the Future document because they're under pressure, 18 months late, and yet the instability in the system, This is meant to be the roadmap, the New Zealand Health Plan to guide us into 2027, and yet it refers to Te Maori o Rongo, our health charter and the health principles, is completely irrelevant now. So how does the system plan for the future when our plans are already out of date?
Yeah. Chewy, jump in, sir.
Well, straight away there, I can see a couple of problems. It sounded like this was really evidence-based, and it sounds like it had a real eye to a long-term solution for some systemic problems. So straight away, I'm sure you can appreciate it's got to go. It's got to go. It doesn't fit the vibe. So we're just going to poke holes in it until it's irrelevant, and then we're just going to chuck it on the pile with everything else about our health system that has been chopped to buggery. And I must admit, this passed me by. And I like to say we have really, really focused on the stuff that needed submissions and needed people behind it. This one just got past me. I'm sitting here listening to you and going, what? This is tier 1 critical issue.
Mission critical.
Where are we hearing about it? Where is our media just pointing out how bad this is? Actually, to the point, where's Labour? I haven't seen them mention anything on this.
Yeah, I've been pumping and harassing and making sure everyone's lining up and putting submissions in, and I'm so grateful that people responded. But, I'm calling it out. It's not Pae Ora anymore. This legislation is not Pae Ora. It is Pae Mate, because it is vibes. It's based on vibes and widgets and targets. So it's completely undermining the basis of the vision of Sir Mason Jury. Pae Ora, how we can be well, so we can thrive and be healthy and protect the health and well-being of all New Zealanders. No, they're just measuring us now on a widget, and it's about patient care. Don't worry about the community you come from or any of the challenges you have. We're only worried about bums on seats and numbers through the front door.
Can I just say as well, Chewy, just to show people what I was saying today. So I've just Googled again, Pae Ora Amendment, and Parliament, AII View, Parliament, Ministry of Health. See what I'm saying? Where's the news? Where's the news?
Yeah, there's no news organisation talking about this.
So to find it, you click on the but even you click on the news tab, New Zealand Doctor, Pharmacy Today, RNZ Tau Māori has been covering, but where's the One News? Where's the stuff? Where's the, it's like, it's really, maybe I'm a bit gullible. Maybe it shows my silliness, but there's no one's talking about this, and it sounds.
And I've been knocking and no one's home.
Yeah. I just, so submissions are finished. Where are we at now? What can we still do? What can people still get involved with? What's the plan from here on in? So
we're going to be heading into hearing submissions now. So we've, got up to 1,800 submissions. I think we're going to have maybe 20 hours worth of hearings coming up. We're just negotiating on what that looks like. And we've been really firm in the opposition space that we want to hear from as many people that want to present as possible, face to face where possible as well. It's important that people do plug in and watch the Health Select Committee. There's a vast array of submitters on this issue, and it's unions, it's associations, it's whānau, it's PHOs. You've got IHC in there, different Hauora entities, iwi community, mothers, those with children with disability are in there, because it actually undermines, that uniqueness that we have in our community. It is making us all the same and thinking that, of course, we're all equal, which we're not. And so now when we go into submission mode, it is listening to the voice of community and trying to elevate it up and get people talking about it. Because when the this Pae Ora Healthy Futures legislation does come through the House, they're going to have the numbers to change it. And so there will be fundamental changes in the way that they commission services, procure services into community, and the way that health outcomes will be measured into the future. So we have to be really careful now in terms of what we see moving forward in terms of service delivery out into communities.
I just thought that anytime anyone gets a chance to interview Mr. Seymour, they should show him this, something that I always think about when we're talking about equality and equity, because of course that if you're living in a particular region, you can give benefits to that region for the right reason, or if you're of a particular age, you can give benefits to that age if it's for the right reason, or if you're in the disability community, or although they are trying to crawl that back, you can give benefits to that particular disability because it's the right thing to do and they need it. But when you start talking about Māori, and if they need it, then you can't do it all of a sudden because it's based on ethnicity. Based on all the other things is fine, but not ethnicity. Chewy, I want to ask Huhana something else about something she spoke about in the House today. Is there anything else you want to check in on? We don't need to wrap this up quickly because this is important. But on Pae Ora, is there anything else you want to get out there or ask while we're here?
No, I don't have anything specific there.
Okay.
Just touching on the equity thing, because you're going to be talking about Dargaville. Dargaville is not whāngarei. Dargaville is not Kaikohe, it's not Kaitaia. Our country towns are very different and they all require tailored services. That's the point of Pae Ora, to be able to provide a platform whereby the equity lens is meant to be cast upon a region, and we're meant to look and say, okay, where's the need? What are the gaps? And let's fund that. Let's resource it and shift the resource there. The fundamental changes that are going to happen in the health system now, because it's Healthy Futures Pae Ora, will undermine this approach. And so equity will be lessened or reduced or weakened in terms of the priority order of how health services will be funded, but also the way with which our workforce will be applied in our regions.
Yeah. All right. And anything else on that we need to keep an eye on? Anything else more we can do right now other than just be informed and be ready to respond?
Be informed and be ready to respond. Keep talking about it. Keep talking about the health issues. And we know there's a horror story every day, and cannot, emphasize the need for better resourcing and an increase in terms of the way that we do look at the system as a whole. But when this legislation does come back to the House, going to continue to be all guns blazing, because it's not just about Māori health, it's about all of the health and wellbeing of populations and communities who are most at risk and need additional support to thrive and live their best lives in Aotearoa.
Yeah, well, we'll keep talking about it, Chewy, because this government's given us nothing else to talk about. So we've got lots of spare time to talk about it. No problems at all. Hey, yeah, while we got you there, we featured Kieran McAnulty's speech in the House yesterday. He was on fire. You had a pretty good crack today for the Public Works Amendment Bill. You had a bit of a rip snorter in the House. So you want to tell us about what's happening with the Public Works Amendment Bill before you head off?
Yeah, so I've been banging on about public works for a couple of years now, since I got in the House. I had an amendment bill which they voted down, the government voted down, and it was the ability basically for Māori landowners to say yes or no to public works takings. That was my member's bill. It was drawn, and in May this year it was voted down in the House. Most disappointing. But this is the amendment legislation that Minister Pink has brought back through the House, and it's about fast track. So I call it the Fast Track Public Works Act. It's about fastening up the way that they can take your land, and take your land for the big roading projects, for infrastructure, and if you're fast in taking the bait, then you can get an incentive payment. So there's a whole lot of carrots available for the landowner to accept the taking of their lands. Now, in submissions, we heard from Patricia Grace, and her whānau came through and talked about their experience, where just recently, like in the last 20 years, they went to the Environment Court to protect a piece of land that belonged to her tupuna that was going to have a state highway put through it in Waikanae. Now, it's not just Māori land that's going to be impacted, it's also general title whānau Pākehā Tauiwi. Now, with the public works provisions in this Amendment Act, general title landowners will not be able to say no, and they will not be able to go to the Environment Court anymore. So that's being taken away. If you contest the loss of your land, it will be the deciding minister who will have the discretion to approve or say no to your application to hold on to your whenua. So, for a government that talks about property rights, they're fundamentally undermining whānau property rights. So that's for general title. Then they say, but Māori, you can still go to the Environment Court. You still have that pathway available for you. And, the funny thing is that it's really expensive to go to the Environment Court. My hapu has just come out of the Environment Court, and it's $100,000 easily, so don't even think that that's viable for the average Māori to be able to challenge a public works taking. So the intention is to speed up the raupatu, or the confiscation of your land, your private property rights. They will give you some incentive payments if you're an early starter and you are agreeing to the loss of your land quickly. You'll get an incentive payment. Otherwise, you will go through the usual negotiation and be offered technical support. But you cannot go to the Environment Court if you want to challenge the loss of your land. It will be the deciding minister with their ministerial overreach that will decide whether you get to retain your land or not.
That's kind of the, if you plead guilty quickly, you'll get a lesser sentence deal, isn't it? It's that sort of vibes. And of course, there's going to be no conflicts of interest with the minister in charge, giving big business kind of access to new infrastructure, who may well also contribute to campaigns for people on the right, and no conflict.
As we've seen in the fast track.
whatsoever. Chewie, do you want to pick up on that for Public Works before I've got one last question?
Yeah, look, I when this was first getting mentioned, down here they were using an example of a landowner north of Christchurch, I think around Pae Ora or something like that, who was basically, as the story painted him, dragging the chain on selling his property that was the last piece required to build another highway. And that was the only example I saw used, was that it was going to be used as an incentive that someone could just get to the nub of it quicker. And I find it really interesting that that's the story that we've all heard down here in the media. But of course, you put up probably some more realistic views of what that means. That is, here is the money, and the money goes down the longer the clock ticks. So don't make a good decision, make a fast one. And that, yeah, you're exactly right to point out the crowd that are all about property rights and government overreach are probably ignoring this one, because it's their team that's doing it.
It's not just property overreach. It's like, remember these guys that they got in because they wanted to throw out those 1984 Orwellian control freak mandate people from the group before, whilst they're basically being 1984 Orwellian control freak saying, well, if we want your land, we'll take it. Like, how does anyone who voted for these guys for that reason, they voted for them because they thought the last lot were control freaks and yada yada yada, how do they lie straight in bed at night? It's because this is actually it happening. Like, it's like the government talking about the RUCs, the road user charges. They're going to track every single car in New Zealand. And the lot who thought we were getting fucking tracked by vaccines from Bill Gates, this is actually a real time for them to stand up, and there's not a word. No, it's fine. It's different because it's not Jacinda. And so we're fine with it. It's just, sorry, a bit of a tangent there, but I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
But you can see it, eh? You can see it coming in terms of the nanny state. That was the allegation of last time round, that actually they're hovering and they will take at their will, and they will use the economic benefit and the public good as their rationale to take your whenua, to track you, to charge you extra levies. You know, it's coming at us thick and fast. And, you know, how expensive is a pound of butter?
Yeah. Hey, before we go, I just had a little thought during this conversation, and it comes back to this government and the name change stuff. You know, Te Whatu Ora, Health New Zealand, whatever it is. And these guys are now going to be, they're not Pae Ora Healthy Futures Act, they're the Healthy Futures Pae Ora Act. This is the thought. Now, I might be being a bit naive, and I'd like both of your takes on this. Every political party, Greens included, have a certain amount of political capital they can spend before the public goes, okay, enough. Why the fuck are they spending their political capital on this? Because this is not important. Why are they putting out there this sort of stuff? Why are they putting their political capital out there? Why are they putting themselves in front of the public more for this? When eventually all of the public gets sick of the people in charge. So you've got to find that balance between being in front of them and kind of staying out of the light. Why are they spending their political capital on this? Any thoughts, Huhana?
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think it is in terms of maybe, you know, the drivers and the push and the pull and the coalition partners, because what I believe and understand in terms of the way that they're moving is that there's a legislation that comes before them, and they probably have to make some agreements in terms of the workable solutions between the three-headed taniwha. So if te reo Māori and the use of the language within legislation and in government departments and put it on your passport, if that's an issue for you, it's going to be a bottom line all the time. And we see that with Matua Winitana. Anytime Aotearoa is said in the House, he jumps on it, you know. So I don't know what the driver is, but I can just see, you know, the three-headed taniwha, and there's clearly, you know, some bottom lines for them. And they are going after the reo, despite the fact we look at our pukus, you know, we're quite used to talking about kai. It's quite normalised now. We've invested in it for quite some time. It's an issue for someone within the coalition government.
I like the Matua Winitana. I like that. I'm liking that one. Chewie, what about you, mate? This isn't really a question specifically for Huhana. It's more of an opinion based. I know our natural inclination would be because they're pitching to their base, but why do you think they're using their political capital on this?
feels like it's their shot. They're shooting their shot.
Right.
Like we've spoken about how the fact that these guys are losing a generational battle. And I think you were saying that it's that culture war put through, because they know that the kids that have gone through the schools in the last 20 years, say, there's been so much more effort put into it. It's so much more accepted than when I went through school or that sort of thing. So you can see them trying to slam it shut for the new entrants. You're seeing it disestablished through the rest of schooling. You're wanting the names scrubbed from government departments, from road signs, from our bloody passports. And it just seems a bit desperate. Like, I talk to a lot of people, and we live in the South, so, I mean, it's pretty white at times. And you see the mispronunciations of Māori place names and that sort of thing. And you definitely see in the news media, you know, we've had a couple of developments here, like in Mosgiel, there's a pool, and it was gifted a Māori name by the local iwi, and they're building a new library in South Dunedin that was also gifted a name that the council's decided not to use. And people go, well, I don't know what it means. You know, people won't, you see all of these edge cases. Like, what if a person from overseas comes to Mosgiel and wants to know where the pool is? They won't know where it is. And there's definitely an audience for that. But I think when I'm talking to people, it just comes up as something that is not that important. Like, they don't want to see government spending a lot of time on this. And I think if it just happens, people might grumble about it for a little bit, and then they'll either get over it or they'll die. And the rest of us can just carry on. Like, I see people down here all the time just trying harder. Like, trying to get the pronunciations right, trying to get the vowel sounds right. And I think it's sinking in that nobody expects perfection. They expect effort.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What it is, Chewy, and I've spoken to this before, is what's changed in this part of the world recently is it's gone from being that's not how you say opaho. It's changed from that to, and I can give you a story when we moved to Dunedin and we were talking to someone about coming down, and we told them about the road trip, and we went through Taupo and da-da-da-da-da-da, and the lady just looked at me and said, you pronounce it correctly. And the flip was not her fighting against it. She wasn't there, or she didn't maybe have the confidence to do it, but the change has been, we don't say it like that, to, there is a proper way to say it. I can't quite do it yet. That's the change. That's the change.
Well, actively
Huhana,
seeing people jump between the two pronunciations in a conversation as they, shit, I said it wrong. You know, and I see that in my own mother quite often. Yeah.
Huhana, it's been lovely to have you. I was just thinking, actually, this is like the metaverse. Maybe we can bring Gary in for 1 minute, because you're the health spokesperson for the Greens. We're about to talk to Gary about Dargaville. Maybe we could just link you two guys for 2 or 3 minutes, then we can say goodbye to you. And are you cool with that?
Yeah, it'd be awesome to see Uncle Gary. All good.
I haven't asked Gary that, but let's bring him in. I'm sure he's hearing us and he's ready for it. Kia ora, Gary.
Kia ora. Did Huhana just call me Uncle Gary?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I am that old, huh? Alrighty. Oh well.
I
guess
just
I'll embrace that.
We've been talking about health issues, health news, and we're about to go on and talk about it. And Huhana brought up Dargaville Hospital. I thought I just wanted to connect you guys. If there's anything that you guys want to talk about or share with each other quickly for 3-5 minutes, and then we can send Huhana off for the night and we can keep going on. Is there anything that you guys want to connect with or share about, or Huhana, is anything you want to tell Gary, especially about that Dargaville Hospital example we just talked about?
Well, I'm glad that it's being shared tonight. So thanks, Dr. Gary, for coming online and talking about it. Because what's happening in Dargaville will be something that we'll consistently start to see across other regional hospitals as the underfunding of the system continues to sort of just, turn off the tap. And we will be more centralised towards secondary care in our main centres. And that doesn't help us, because if we can stay and receive treatment in our own hometowns, that's ultimately the goal, isn't it? And so we need to see kaimahi, doctors, the health services fueled and resourced appropriately so that whānau in Dargaville don't have to drive an hour to come over to Whangarei for overnight care. It's pretty simple and it's fundamental. Even though it's an hour, you know, it's significant for whānau who have to travel when we're lucky to have legal vehicles these days on the road.
Yeah, I mean, we say an hour from Dargaville Hospital to Whangarei Hospital, but the reality, of course, is that if you live in a rural community, even further out, so I'm thinking of Poto Point, they've got to travel 30 minutes longer than you would travel if you were driving from Auckland to Hamilton. Those patients have a 30-minute longer drive than if you were going from Auckland to Hamilton. And that is to get into Whangarei Hospital if they are ill. So as always, guys, I need to preface our little chat by saying this is always me speaking in my personal capacity, not on behalf of an organization. But I think if any of us take a look at that map, you realize what's at stake here. People live in these communities. They live rurally. And if they can't get into a hospital, and Dargaville is just one of many, right? Bay of Islands is having challenges with staffing. Kaitaia is too. Rawene is gravely disabled, obviously, by its staffing problems for quite a while now. If you live in these communities, an hour and 55 minutes in from Poto Point to a hospital that has a doctor in it overnight, an hour 55 minutes is a really long time. Now, we have ambulances, we have helicopters, but they also are struggling to for funds and to maintain staffing. We've got a situation where the priorities, I think a lot of people would agree the priorities are not quite right when you're giving you're setting aside, a government is setting aside $300 million for oil and gas companies to help them afford their work. $300 million over several years to help Philip Morris cigarette company sell more heated tobacco products. So there's 600 million right there. Let's deploy that money to help people that need help, that are suffering and poor and rural and need assistance.
I reckon, Gary, you've got a policy idea there. Huhana, going into an election, how far should a Kiwi have to live from an overnight doctor? Like, in all seriousness, like, what's the distance? Like, should every New Zealander, by right, live within an hour, 45 minutes, whatever the number is, of an overnight doctor? And that could drive policy towards, manning, peopling these smaller regional hospitals to make sure that they are staffed overnight, so you don't get the hour and a half drive to Whangarei or whatever else. Interesting.
Yeah, I also work in the Whakatane o Pōtiki area, supporting the branches out there in the Green Party. And I want to shout out to the way that they utilise their health dollar in Whakatohea Health. They have nurse-led clinics for after hours, but they have a doctor that is meant to be on campus 5 minutes away from the clinic if needed. Like, they're trying to find different ways of working in Pōtiki. So if someone comes across from Te Kaha and it's after 6 p.m, the nurse can connect them with the doctor really quick. Different ways of using the dollar and the skills that are available in Pōtiki, which is not whakatane and it's not tauranga, so thinking about Te Kaha all the way Pōtiki, whakatane to tauranga. So, there's innovations everywhere, and it's just not fair the way that communities are being treated.
We'll let you go, Huhana. We've kept you for damn near long enough. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and really appreciate your time, and thanks for interacting with Gary, and I'm sure we'll catch up again super soon. So appreciate your time.
Bye, Huhana.
Ka pai, hei kona.
spokesperson
Cheers.
for the Greens, that is Huhana Lyndon. Kia ora, Gary.
Kia ora, guys. How's it going,
we
Chewy?
thought
Kia ora.
you'd be comfortable being thrown in with a quick conversation there, so we just
Absolutely.
did it. Now we can. I think we should start again, and look, we can start here because that's where we left off. I've got those images, obviously, that you sent through to me, but I've also got the actual stories that you sent to me as well.
Let's take a minute and dissect them a bit.
Yeah, why don't you take the lead, because this is some stuff you've been looking at today, and we want to get into this.
So if we just go to the map real quick, you'll see that it's a 57-kilometer drive from Dargaville to Whangarei Hospital. It's 57 k's, about 48 minutes. Dargaville has about 27,000 people resident in it. And something like Poto Point would be one of the furthest away points within that Dargaville Hospital catchment. And you're looking at a 1 hour, 55-minute travel time to get to a hospital with a doctor in it overnight. Wow. 125 kilometers. That's a really long way if for someone in need. Now, you could argue that if you heavily invested and heavily resourced St. John Ambulance and the rescue helicopter, that Northland Emergency Services Trust, that you could get those patients in. But of course, we are up against grave limitations in ambulance services in Northland. And I don't want to pretend that this is just this is the only place that's in need. This is Nelson, this is East Cape, this is the South Auckland has its own issues of deprivation and neglect. But this is just today's news story. And I think if we go and let's trace these stories, I think reported best by RNZ. The first one is from January 2025, when a high-level doctor said there were very significant concerns about clinical safety because there was no on-site doctor. An OIA request, which is obviously asking the government to reveal its somewhat private information, revealed a possible plan to close Dargaville Hospital and downgrade it to daytime-only urgent care. That was leaked, and the health minister at the time, Shane Reti, and Margie Appa said, to the contrary, it would be staying open, and they would try to do what they could to take care of people with telehealth and increase numbers of transfers to Whangarei Hospital. But of course, there's not an increase in funding in any broad way for getting helicopters and ambulances and whatnot to pick up all of those extra patients. So if you have to realize that in these rural communities, there's often only one ambulance, right, with a kind of skeleton crew. And if they have to go on a drive to their furthest part, again, let's use Poto Point as an example. You're looking at something like hours out of commission, 2 to 4 hours, maybe more. For
well,
some,
it's probably
some of these
it's probably at
catchments.
least 4, because if it's 155 there, 155 back, and then of course I'll have to stop and stabilize the patient, and so it could be 5, it could be 4.5, 5 hours.
It absolutely could be. Now, not everyone's coming from Poto Point, so I don't want to overmake the point. But they're still traveling hours, and that means for hours, if you're having a concurrent emergency in that area, it's going to be difficult to get an ambulance from, let's say, out of area to sort of rescue you, to aid you. So yeah, that's a challenge. And then in the July 2025 RNZ story, it said Dargaville lost its last full-time doctor. The article quoted that 2 full-time equivalents were what they had at that point when 4 were needed, and that there was a massive increase in ambulance transfers. Said one of the doctors, "I am worried about our senior nurses," and there were concerns about rural recruitment and retention bonuses, and more recently, there's been a broad concern about decreases to the rural hospital doctors' pay. So in a time of austerity, there's obviously less resilience, and if you are having challenging behaviors regarding nurses and doctors that are trying to address understaffing, if the blowback in those negotiations is very aggressive and at times even insulting, personally insulting, that it doesn't bode well for a sector of healthcare workers that are trying to do their best under very hard circumstances. And so you're seeing clinicians saying that they don't know how long that they can continue to do this. And we know that the main answer to these problems is privatize, privatize, privatize. And you have to ask yourself what that does when you're telling GPs that they can make more money for easier work by going to telehealth, and that the equivalent sort of patient might garner 2 to 3 times or even 4 times as much pay in the private urgent care setting as it will in public. You only have to look at our anesthetists and surgeons who are being incentivized now by this public taxpayer money being shifted out into the private sector, right? Simeon Brown, the health minister, has said that he intended to, and I believe has, privatized 10,579 surgeries to the private sector. That means that a limited pool of doctors in New Zealand who could work in public or private, or sometimes both, will have an increasing incentive to move to private. So you are seeing the hollowing out of the public healthcare sector. Nurses, doctors like anesthetists, endoscopists, surgeons are being incentivized to move into private and leave the public sector, leaving the public sector in a more desperate and understaffed state. This is not good. And I don't want anyone watching to be confused and think that the rhetoric they will read in sort of mainstream newspapers is even remotely accurate. This idea that there's just no money in the system. The reality is the money has been spent elsewhere.
Yeah.
19 billion on tax cuts, and the hundreds of millions I've talked about for tobacco companies, the $2.9 billion for landlords to enable them to have more affordable mortgages. It's backward. It's using taxpayer money to help the people who need it least, and taking taxes from the people who are really working the hardest. We've got this incredibly wrong in New Zealand right now. We're robbing from the poor and working class to improve things for the corporate class and really rich people and property investors and donors to these political parties. And it shouldn't be this way. And we should understand that we can redeploy the money to actually take care of people in need. And if government is not here to do that, to look out for the well-being of the people generally, then what is it? What is the purpose of a government if not that?
Hey, Gary, let's just take one little step backwards, and then we're going to ask you about the story on Dargaville today, because you mentioned telehealth, and just so people are aware what that means, this is a story.
Yeah, I think it made the front page
Herald.
of the Herald today,
Yeah,
right?
so it's the Northern Advocate, which is a part of the Herald. 100 see doctor by digital consult only at Kaitaia Hospital each month. A patient advocate said it's unacceptable in third world that hundreds of patients come into Kaitaia Hospital each month are treated through telehealth instead of seeing an on-site doctor. Health New Zealand says the digital consultations provide support at times of high demand and are monitored by clinical staff. average of 210 patients per day. So what's that? 3 sevens are 21, seven a day. Receive a digital health consult at the hospital between January 23 and March 25, according to the official information released by Health New Zealand to Northern Advocate. So that's what that is. Do you want to speak anything else to that before we bring up the Dargaville story in particular?
Yeah, I think it's good that these issues are getting attention. I mean, it's sad that it comes to this, but it's good that they're making the news. So that same article, if you read a bit further, says that earlier this year, a U.S.-based telehealth doctor was said to spend 20 minutes with the patient, and the patient's wife, I think, reported this to the journalist covering the story. So 20 minutes with a telehealth doctor after waiting several hours and seeing an after-hours GP. They were told that they could go home and without sort of further workup or referral or what have you.
It was a stroke patient as well. A patient who had a stroke. Yeah,
it was and
Damn.
Several days later, they rang their GP and were told to go to Auckland. Auckland's really far from Kaitaia, many hours, and really challenging for many families to afford the petrol, afford the motel stay, and all of it. They were seen in Auckland and reportedly admitted for a week and received intensive occupational therapy for a month. This is just one case. It's just a highlighted case in the article, but we are hearing from patients that they're having to go make incredible treks just to get primary care, let alone specialty care. We're hearing from specialists about how hard it is on them to work in a system where sometimes only 20% of patients are getting seen within the recommended timeframes, and that takes a toll on a specialist. So if 80% of your patients are falling outside your specialty's guidelines and you're feeling like you're not able to deliver standard of care, and you're seeing people at 6 months suspecting that the cancer you are picking up at 6 months could have been dealt with, it could have been dealt with at an earlier stage if they had seen you within 4 to 6 weeks. That's obviously bad for the patient, but it's also really hard for the doctors who are put in this situation. So, we hear from gastroenterologists, from hematologists who say that they can't get patients in for, let's say, a bone marrow transplant. And again, this is not specific to this region. These are stories drawn from other regions as well, where they tell me they've had patients that can't get in to have the treatment purely because there is not the nurse staffing to take care of them. There's not the doctor staffing to take care of them. And they come in after 6 months, no longer able to qualify for the treatment that might have helped them because the disease has now progressed. So that's taking an awful toll on people. And I just want to advocate for them and talk about them.
Chewy, you obviously want to welcome you into the conversation as well. Would you like to jump in now, or should we bring up the Dargaville story, or what do you want to do, Chewy?
I think there's a real place for telehealth. Don't get me wrong. This isn't it. Trying to support an entire region, like it's reasonably sparsely populated in parts. It's geographically challenging, sure, but it sounds like we've abandoned the people of Northland.
This isn't just Northland. This is much broader than just Northland. Yeah. But in some to some degree, we are canaries in the coal mine. So you sort of see it worst in places that are neglected and forgotten about. So,
also
it's horrible.
Maybe we're talking Northland as well to move into this because of this other story. that Dargaville Hospital patients asked to sign consent forms on having no on-site doctor. So patients been asked, could you just sign this that you're okay with no doctor on site? Some headlines from the story: Dargaville Hospitals asked patients to consent in writing to having no doctor on site overnight. Health New Zealand says it's safe for non-acute patients, which of course raises the obvious question, what about the acute ones? Former clinical manager says risks are being ignored. Local doctor blames Health New Zealand for crisis staffing situation. Also, as we said earlier, got some advice today that this is actually not legal. You're not allowed to sign away your rights when it comes to healthcare. It's like, even if you sign a document, it doesn't absolve the other party. It's you can't be let off. The hospital can't be let off, or the health system, so to speak. But Gary, have at it.
So I guess first I want to say that the people that are having to make these sorts of decisions, even in management roles, are placed in a very difficult bind. I don't believe that anyone in the health system anywhere, not just in Northland, anywhere, is doing this to intentionally hurt anyone. They are like many of us in the public system. They're trying to do the best under the constraints that they've been given, the hand that they've been dealt. And so if good people are trying to do this, like the doctor in the article mentions that this is an attempt to provide informed consent to people, to just keep them in the loop, to tell them what's going on when they might have had expectations that you're coming to a hospital, you expect it to have a doctor if something goes wrong. Like, this concept of doctorless hospitals is new for a lot of people. A lot of us might argue that you aren't really a real hospital if you're doctorless. But the place that the mid-level staff are coming from, I think, is a good one. But from the top, they're being made to work under really tough constraints. And you can see in that earlier article that I was quoting from, essentially, well, let's stick with this one. The former clinical director for Northland's rural hospitals, Dr. Pragati Gautama, who resigned last year in frustration, said the consent form put patients and staff in a difficult position. Is it informed consent? She said, because the person arriving is unwell and now has to sign a pro forma on where to stay, and I question if they really know how unwell they are. So I just attended a medical course a couple days ago where we talked about informed consent, and it was interesting because they felt you couldn't do informed consent with a patient in the anteroom of a surgical theater or in the endoscopy suite. Once you get them there, it's a little bit late. They're constrained and a bit limited in their options. Informed consent should be given freely, right? And this raises concerns about whether you can actually do that when you're saying, yeah, I'm okay with a nurse helping me and telehealth on a video screen helping me. There's a lot that goes into that decision. And yeah, I feel sorry for everyone involved in this, to be honest. So this doctor was saying, I don't believe it's fair on the nursing staff who are left with no on-site support to manage quite complex patients. Her advice, so this doctor's advice, was rejected, reportedly at the direction of national leadership. I want to emphasize that I don't think anyone's blaming local mid-level management or even upper management for these issues. This is it's a decision. It all comes down to money at the end of the day. This is a funding decision, and the money, as I said a few minutes ago, has gone elsewhere. So her advice was rejected, reportedly at the direction of national leadership. Quote, they basically said, no, we can't do that. It's going to look bad if we close the hospital down. Yeah, the article's a really good one, and people should read it. To quote her further, I think we're playing with people's lives basically just because they happen to be Maori or Pacifica or poor, or I would add, or rural. We're putting them at the bottom of the list. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Gary, thanks for jumping on and joining us tonight. Chewy, you haven't had much of a chance to have a go at this. Do you got what do you want to? I'm sure you've been sitting there thinking about family members who are nurses and various other things within the health system.
They, like the nurses that I know, are overloaded, even with doctors around. I can't imagine them having to deal with something like it's not even right to sign a waiver to go on a roller coaster. How is it right to go in a hospital? I'm going to repeat the most common word that I've seen slide through the chat as you've been talking, Dr. Gary. Dystopian. This is a dystopian description of our healthcare that I think people in the cities just cannot comprehend. Why are none of the groups that speak up for rural communities in terms of farming and that sort of thing not beating a bloody riot over this? Because this affects them as well.
I mean, I think people are speaking up. If you look at local Facebook community pages, if you talk to people in Pack and Save, if you just chat with friends, you know that people are engaged in this. Everyone realizes how important the local public hospital is to them. But I would say that the people making these decisions, these again, these are top level, these are big political decisions. These people are insulated from this. A colleague of mine started a petition that had the provocative idea that our politicians in government making these laws would take a pledge to not have private health insurance. Now, it might have been a bit tongue-in-cheek. I actually think it was sincere what he was trying to do. But this idea, it speaks to the fact that Simeon Brown will never have to drive 125 kilometers to get to a hospital when he's in extremis. He will likely never be told that the helicopter is out on 2 other jobs, so it can't fly him in. You know, these private hospitals are popping up like poison mushrooms throughout the country, and they are just burgeoning. They're exploding with radiology, CT, MRI, PET scan, intensive care units of their own. This is the heyday of the private for-profit hospital, the private urgent care center, because they're being given hundreds of millions of dollars of public taxpayer money. And, you know, when you look at these urgent care centers, you only have to look to see who owns them. Private equity, you know, Mercury Capital, Sydney-based, multinational, private, highly for-profit organization. They're going into it because they are creaming it. Yeah. And yeah, this is a heyday for some people. It's an incredibly great time for some folks at the very, very, very top of the income distribution, like the big owners of these private entities, private hospitals. But it's not cool for those of us that are trying to do the best we can in, like you said, rural communities. I don't know what it's going to take to change it, but like I'm doing what I can do. If I do any more, I won't have a job. So it's challenging. And you do what you can, and you hope that people talk about it. You hope that people appeal to the best aspects of people in government right now and just say, please, can you redeploy the billions that have been spent elsewhere? You know, these tax cuts that were heralded as being transformative for New Zealand, if you look at how little the average or the median, right? So the median is the 50% mark of New Zealand. So half make more, half make less. So if you look at the median worker and you plug in the numbers of how much they were going to get in lower taxes, it's a pittance. It's, $13 or $21 a week or something like that. And you just think, have we eroded public services so badly simply to enrich corporations? I mean, that's what it looks like from my perspective. I don't hide that. Like, I do look at it with a jaundiced eye, and I think it is absolutely a rotten thing to do. But more people, perhaps voters of ACT or New Zealand First or National, really need to be talking to their parliamentarians, their representatives, and saying, guys, please redeploy the money. Please redeploy the 2.9 billion that's still going to landlords, and use that money for healthcare, for public education, for lunches for public school children, whatever, for the people, for regular people.
Yeah.
Because it is hard out there for your average person.
Gary, you were saying that you're doing what you can. One of the things you're doing is your podcast. Do you want to tell people about tomorrow morning with Ali McDougall talking about Pae Ora?
Yeah, I always find it awkward kind of plugging anything I'm doing. Look, I write articles on Substack, which are long, that talk about these things. I will go anywhere and talk to any community group that wants me there. So if you think any of this could help move the dial one iota, I'm happy to come and talk. Based on a couple good interactions we've had on BHN, I had the opportunity for a big, hairy network to back me, and just assist me with the technical aspects of a podcast, which I have no technical ability in that regard. But you've been great. We have the Frontline podcast, which is trying to talk about how to build a better nation, how to build a fairer and more just society. What does that actually look like? What things do you have to do to get there? How do you protect public services, especially essential public services and workers' rights and all of those related things? I don't even know how to describe this show, Pat. Like, it's trying to fight a government that seems hell-bent on degrading the public sphere and civil society to the benefit of the extremely wealthy, who are thriving in this time of austerity and recession and cost of living crisis. It's not being felt the same by all the elements in society. Some folks are doing amazingly right now, aided by government policies, and that's got to end. So I don't know, was that even a plug? If people want to follow the Frontline, they can. We talk about every week, or sometimes even twice a week, we're talking with people like Ali McDougall about changes to the Pae Ora Healthy Futures Act. She's started an organization that is trying to move regular people so that they understand what they're losing. More gags on healthcare workers, preventing their ability to speak out. Some of the economic, the workers' rights changes that have made it unable for doctors in the public sector to file a personal grievance. Like, that's what's in these amendments, whether it's the Employment Relations Act or
Gary,
Pae Ora.
This is really important, Gary. This is really important because this is something that hasn't been mentioned. No one's mentioned. We've just had Huhana on. We've been talking about this. No one's mentioned in the changes to Pae Ora the gagging of, they're basically telling doctors they can't speak out. Am I correct in that? I think that's something that we should highlight. You know it better than I. Do you want to just give us a nutshell?
They can always couch this in defensible terms. But I would just point out that, so the requirement is for Health New Zealand employees to, quote unquote, uphold public neutrality when carrying out their functions. They don't go into details about what that is, but people in healthcare find it very curious that you would put employment, workers' rights language into constraining them into a healthy futures amendment bill. It's essentially reiterating the fact that they want to go down this idea that if you're down this track, that if you're a public employee, your freedom of expression is constrained. There have been cases of healthcare workers being told, they can't criticize government policies, that sort of thing. And people, doctors, some of us are finding it kind of chilling that this is making its way into this act, that the employment laws are being, I guess, proposed to be modified to remove the rights of doctors to file a personal grievance. What happens when you are what you believe, wrongfully dismissed, and you want to file a personal grievance, but you legally cannot? That right, that employment right that's been cherished and held by employees for ages, is being eroded and removed. They're removing in the Pae Ora bill, specifically in that bill, they're removing references to the New Zealand Health Charter. And that doesn't sound like much, but the charter was kind of a cool document because it talked about responsibilities to take care of people, responsibilities to staff things safely so that patients wouldn't suffer and staff wouldn't be placed in ethically untenable situations due to understaffing. So it wasn't binding, but it had this idea that we would do the right thing, that we wouldn't understaff, etc. By removing those words, you degrade the public sector and the social sphere of just civil society just a little bit. So it's all incremental. Do I think they're going to gag everybody and change it? No, it's incremental, and that's why several of us doctors, met with our local member of parliament, Dr. Shane Reti, this week to present our concerns about the bill, about understaffing, and about a whole bunch of other things coming from various specialties, medicine, emergency medicine, gastroenterology, to present some hard data and some numbers and have a collegial conversation with someone that we would hope would understand the issues at hand.
Just finally, and I know you've kind of answered it, but what I'm hearing you, just for clarity, this is what Simeon Brown read in the House. Is it fair to say that there are some within the healthcare fraternity, within the doctors' associations, when they hear this line read by Simeon Brown, we'll be making sure that Health New Zealand staff must uphold the public service principle of political neutrality and follow the public service code of conduct? Is it fair to say that there are some, maybe not all, and maybe, like you're saying, it's not as big and bad as it sounds, who are seeing that as a way of saying, don't criticize the government?
Absolutely. That's how some of us are viewing those words.
And therefore,
because we know the reality,
breach
behind the words. It's not just words, it's enforcement actions that are happening. And it's tough. It's very hard on doctors to be placed in that situation where the medical council says they have a right to speak out on behalf of patient safety and patient care, where the Public Service Commission says they have rights to freedom of expression, the same way that, Pat and Chewy can talk about government and criticize government. Public employees are allowed and afforded those same protections and freedoms of expression when they're speaking in their personal capacity. So now it's almost a nervous tick that I'm trying to say this everywhere I speak or write, speaking in my personal capacity, not speaking on behalf of any organization, speaking as a doctor, as a human, as a New Zealand citizen. So yeah, look, it's not reassuring language. It's not what you want, where like the language in our employment contracts actually is almost the opposite of this. It says the best thing you can do as a healthcare professional, doctor, nurse, or anyone else, is to talk about the issues, because it raises the public profile and the public knowledge of an issue. It gets good information out there, and it allows debate, community involvement, and then change of the policies, the regulations, the political milieu. So in some ways, having your doctors speaking out helps a politician have a mandate to improve things in the healthcare system. Like, all we want, it would be beautiful if we could hear, we've got your back, we are gonna upstaff these places, we are really committed to safe nursing patient ratios, and we're gonna move heaven and earth and do everything we can to ensure that vulnerable patients in vulnerable communities are taken well care of. Like, that's stuff that should make a politician proud, right? To be doing that stuff. It should be heartwarming. It should totally win votes, but it won't win campaign donations. It doesn't win corporate backing.
Yeah.
And that is a conflict.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
And you would hope that the people within the system would be the best ones to criticize it, because they know the system. Hey, Gary, it's been fantastic having you on tonight. Thanks for joining us. For people who are watching or listening now, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, Andy McDowell from Protect Public Healthcare, who is talking Pae Ora Healthy Futures Act with you in your podcast tomorrow. So thanks for being a part of it tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. And I guess we'll all hear from you tomorrow morning at about 6 a.m.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show, as always. I hope people do check out the podcast. More importantly, I hope they get involved. I hope it spurs something in them. If people want to come on the show and talk about these issues with me, if they've got some personal knowledge, some family and whānau involvement, just reach out to me.
Cool. And we've got that website being all set up at the moment. I think thefrontline.nz is all up and operational. They can contact us through there as well. Gary, thanks for coming on, man. We'll talk to you super soon. Always appreciate your hard work.
Same here. Thank you for putting these stories out there. You're doing great work. Thanks a lot.
All the best.
It's vital.
Chewy, anything you'd like to reference here? I know there's a lot to pick up, but is there anything you want to consolidate from there?
That I had pinballing between my head, and I just tried to hold that thought. The really concerning thing here is we've noticed the effect of our media outlets shedding staff, and the cooling effect that's had on news gathering in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. When you put that in conjunction with the government clearly sort of saying, well, if you're a doctor or a nurse, shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. You're politically neutral, which is something that is generally reserved for workers in full-on government departments like IRD or something like that they've got to be politically neutral in their views. I'm very concerned that if medical staff can't tell us what the state of the health sector is, that there isn't enough media to tell us that something's wrong with the health service as well. And if we don't know what's going wrong and how bad it is, we'll let it continue to get worse, and then we end up further down the track than they are with the NHS in England. And that is my personal worst case scenario.
I was thinking as well that legislation that I just read out, it was the drafted, but I think that was read in Parliament about upholding the public service principle of political neutrality being a way of saying do not criticise the government. Why don't they rewrite it and they flip it? How about that the government won't be arsonists when it comes to the health system? And then there can't be any complaints, So you just do your job, and then people within the medical fraternity wouldn't, or the education system or the whatever, wouldn't need to go, hey, can we just highlight this big issue here? And maybe if you had a functioning system that had an amount of respect and actually working together, rather than perhaps going to RNZ or whoever it is, the teacher league or the healthcare league, they'd come to the government because they could trust you and go, hey guys, here's a situation, we need to work together on this. But what's happening at the moment is if you get someone going, hey guys, here's a situation, the government are like, shut the fuck up, or the government's like troublemaker. It's like, actually, if there's a problem that these experts can see, maybe we need to think about how to engage with those experts to fix the problem. I don't know why that's a controversial thing to say to a government. Anyway. Speaking of chats, there's a few back there. Sorry we didn't get to your chats while Huhana was here, but we went straight into Craig, so we've got the whole show's one to do now. Kiwi pointing out that Huhana, it's a rule that all guests need beards. Is it a rule? No, it's a bit of a rule. It's not really a rule.
It's a guide rail.
You have to have hair somewhere on your body. So on top of your head, that's fine, big hairy, like there, or like on your back.
Good save, Pat.
Somewhere. One of the worst parts of this legislation is the political neutrality section, an entire section devoted to making sure doctors and nurses can't criticise the government, not in any other legislation, which is what we were just talking about. I think James Dresnott says they're at the wheel, they're selling bits of the car all around them, and they're blind. My gosh, that paints a scary picture, doesn't it? Blind person driving a car whilst disassembling the car at the same time. Kiribird says, when they do it to Māori, they can do it to you too. Kooky Nick just says apologies.
just in general, for stuff everywhere.
Sorry for being here. I'm sorry I had to be here. Peter says, I hoped we'd avoid a cyberpunk dystopia for a few decades yet, but here we are. Arvid says, late fee. Kai Tuhi says, how about ambulances? They take patients from private hospitals to our public system when things go wrong. It's effed. Yes, when there's a problem with the private care surgery, they head off to the public. Hadron says it's not just doctors being silenced, it's everyone in the workforce, even contracted providers. One more here from Arvids. I have your back, Gary. Let me at him. Vampire Matt. Yeah, a doctor in an appointment shouldn't talk anything politics. A doctor in the street should be allowed to. There you go. That's a nice demarcation, isn't it? Leave the politics out of the room, out of the doctor's office, but put it back on with when you're in the protest street. Cigaretti is now science minister. God help us. Just in government can't tell you about policy. Oh wait, probably just in government can't tell you about policy. Oh wait. And finally, for now, Ian says, I subscribe to my local daily newspaper because, as Mehdi Hassan says, it's free press isn't free. We need to support media. Yes, it would be a very cheesy time to do a Patreon throw right now, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to hold out because remember,
no, we're just going to sit that there.
We're just going to sit it there.
Just let it simmer.
Remember Whānau, and we are. I mean, gosh, it's nearly time to go now, but we've promised. Chewy's promised us that he's going to annoy everybody in the chat, and I just think, if for no other reason, it would be good that Chewy did it once and not me. So let's get to the story. Fascinating. Honestly, watching. In fact, I've got another version here of this thing. I've never seen a politician more happy than Judith Collins playing with a helicopter.
I'm holding a...
I mean, look at the smile.
How does it work? What is this dangly bit? That dangly bit is actually a sonar buoy that goes down into the ocean and detects things.
Things.
What are we detecting?
submarines. Anything that might be underwater that's not helpful. Could be all sorts of things.
I got to say as well.
Good
media,
questions.
Media's being absolute shitheads here. Well, who would send a submarine? Well, that's what it does. Things under the water. Like what? Submarines. What country's submarines? It's like, oh, come on, guys. There's not always a smoking gun. That's what the thing does.
Possibly even drug shipments that multinational crime is.
I'm just waiting because she faces camera again and the smile is ear to ear with her toy helicopter.
It tells people, and they might just do something with it. Who knows? Who knows?
Do you have any more of these models?
No, it's my only model. I'm not allowed to break it. It's a bit like our helicopters. You have to be careful of them.
Where'd the model come from?
From obviously, probably there from
Diffie.
It's not a gift, dear. It's not a gift, Mark. This is a loan.
I mean, happiest Judith Collins has ever been in her whole entire life. The happiest. Right. Let's go into the one news story now for the whole thing. For the whole kit and caboodle.
New Seahawk helicopters and 2 Airbus planes. That's what an almost $3 billion spend has got us. The equipment's needed to upgrade our ageing choppers and Boeing 757s that are prone to breaking down on official visits. Political editor Mikey Sherman has more details and reaction.
Like a child with a new...
That's a bit of shade, eh? That are prone to breaking down versus which are getting older and have broken down. Like it's like every time they go, they're gonna break down.
Toy Judith Collins was proud as punch.
Isn't it wonderful?
Showing off the MH-60R
So weird.
Seahawk helicopter.
It is weird.
This is very nice. Just behave.
And also, just remember, hang on, not allowed a scarf in the house, but what, you can bring out toys? And like, I'm being serious. Like, if this was the opposition with the government going, hey, rule 17.8 Mark 7, you don't have props in the house, you know?
Simeon Brown, put your Hot Wheels away. It's work time.
The minister's colleagues lining up to take it for a little spin.
I'll just send it my way, please.
Oh, thank you very much. This is a helicopter used by Australia, the
No, it's a model. Oh, she's meaning the real ones because it's different. It's a model.
US, and 7 other countries.
And soon New Zealand will be the proud owners of 5 Seahawk choppers.
A helicopter that would come equipped with essential weapon systems, Mark 54 torpedoes and Hellfire missiles.
We face the most challenging strategic circumstances in New Zealand's modern history, and certainly the worst that anyone today working in politics or foreign affairs can remember.
The 5 new helicopters.
Hang on, he was at the Boer War, wasn't he? Surely he remembers World War II, wasn't he?
He remembers the Red Scare of the 1880s.
I think so.
Helicopters will be purchased from the US and replace the current 7 Sea Sprites that New Zealand originally bought second-hand from Australia.
This is a defence force. It's not a gendarmerie. It needs to be equipped to be a defence force. And after many years of neglect by a variety of governments over decades, it's time to build back.
I feel
Can I say the joking answer? The joking answer is it's her secretary. No, it's the defence secretary, but that's who.
I've never seen him before. Okay.
No.
Gendarmerie.
She keeps them in a closet.
Time to build back.
I feel this is the government being intentional. It's no longer words. It's no longer on paper.
Also on the way, 2 new Airbus A321 XLR aircrafts. With extra long range, it'll mean greater ability to land in Antarctica.
When our people go to Antarctic to collect somebody or drop people off, we don't have to worry that they're going past that point of no return, which we have at the moment.
So that's pretty scary, eh? So that means obviously the flight's going and you get to a point where it's too far to come back and they have to go all the way or there. Yeah, that's a pretty scary idea.
She makes that sound scary. That's literally how it's always been.
Yeah, but
so I mean, there's a different way to say that. Is like we don't have to worry about this anymore for the first time in all of our years of being in Antarctica. It's just a strange way of putting it.
Just thinking about it logically, doesn't every flight have a point of no return? Like if you flew from Auckland to Sydney, you'd get like 70% of the way there, and then you might not have enough to get back, so you have to keep going. Isn't that every flight? Auckland to Los Angeles. Wouldn't there be a point of no return? You'd have to keep going no matter what. There wouldn't be enough fuel to go 2/3 of the way and then come back.
For a commercial flight, yeah. With what she's talking about with Antarctica, she is saying that it could literally turn back at the point of landing if it had to, if it was fully loaded with fuel. Which, yeah, that's probably the only use case for what she's describing there.
Meaning it gets in Antarctica and it starts to land, and then emergency, it needs to be able to turn around and come all the way back.
And come back, which up until now, we have not been able to do.
And I also think the example that I've just used probably doesn't work, because if you were going Auckland, Los Angeles, and you're 2/3 of the way across and you got in trouble, you'd go to Hawaii. Whereas if you're going to Antarctica, there's kind of nowhere else to shoot off to the side to or something, is there? All right, keep going.
The bill breaks down to $2 billion for the 5 Seahawks and $700 million for the 2 new jets. They replace the Boeing 757s, known for breaking down, including Townsville in 2016 with John Key, Melbourne in 2019 with Jacinda Ardern, and last year a trip to Japan was delayed in Papua New Guinea.
Opting for the Airbus and purchasing that going forward, how much of that is a vote of no confidence in the Boeing 757?
We have to be realistic about it. They've been giving incredible service.
Well, did she just ask how much is that as a vote of no confidence in the 30-year-old planes? Is that what she just asked? I mean,
yeah, it's super weird. That's a bad question.
A bad question, Mikey.
This, backed up by incredible maintenance, but there comes a time when even the most amazing classic aircraft needs to be allowed to go to aircraft heaven.
The first of the new kit will be in operation from early 2028. Mikey Sherman, One News.
All right, Chewy, I do have some questions to throw at you around this, but you seem pretty head up at the start of the night to go it. So you go first, because we've said things about this already which aren't necessarily anti the idea, but I'll just not say anything and give you a chance to go for it.
First of all, the negatives that everybody is here for. I hate everything that makes Judith Collins happy. She's a weird person to talk about this sort of stuff, to see her reading off a press release. And I find the highlighting of the more lethal aspects of this helicopter that was highlighted, I find that to be very strange.
Like was it Hellcat missiles and that kind of stuff, whatever they were.
Yeah, Hellfire missiles and Mark 54 torpedoes and all of this sort of stuff. If we ever get round to using that sort of stuff, things have gone very, very wrong.
Yeah. I mean, if we get around to this is one of my questions. If we got around to using that stuff, we're probably facing fighter jets. I mean, the Defence Secretary said we need to build a defence force. My question is, does like 5 helicopters build a defence force? Like if we were being attacked, I would think that they're not attacking us with like-minded helicopters. They're probably using some big kick-ass jets that are just going to be like, you know, that seems a bit. They don't need to make excuses. Like I think most people would go, if the fleet of whatevers are out of date, they're expired, they're old, they're it could be time to update. Why are you making these excuses? We need a proper defence force. What, 5 helicopters? It's not. Don't mean to scare you, Mr. Secretary. That's not a proper defence force.
The argument is it stands on its own. Like we have old equipment. It is at the end of its useful life. We have 5 Sea Sprite helicopters. They're cannibalizing 2 of them to keep the other 3 going. They're at end of life. But when you look at those Sea Sprite helicopters, they have never fired a shot in anger ever in their entire lifespan.
Do you mean any of them at any country?
Well, New Zealand ones I'll speak of, but you know, American ones probably have. But yeah, it's more likely that they're going to be used for search and rescue, for fisheries protection, all of this sort of stuff. Yeah. So to see the highlight of, they'll have Hellfire missiles and they'll have fucking machine guns going pew pew everywhere. The way she speaks about them is very fucking weird. Okay, so if you look at the last time we spoke about this, I said that the New Zealand Defence Force will be tossing up between 2 different helicopters, one of them being the Seahawk helicopter. And the fact that Australia uses them makes them a really clear cut, this is the one to go for.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we've got the same equipment as Australia, there's interoperability and shared knowledge and all of that sort of stuff. It is a good decision that they went with those. It is also, I think, a good decision to buy 2 new cargo aircraft, basically, people movers, and not buy them from Boeing. That is also a good decision. So where it goes a little bit squirrely here is what we've always been talking about is that they are at a position of going, look at us, we're looking after the Defence Force, we're keeping New Zealand strong, and we're spending a lot of money, which we found at a fucking drop of a hat.
Yep, we did.
So
And
it's,
then-
it's a lot of money, but it's needed.
And then they are doing that at the same time. We don't have money for hospitals. We don't have money for ferries. We don't have money for teachers. We don't have money for nurses. We don't have money for police. We don't have money for firefighters. It doesn't jive. This is, I would put this Defence Force stuff, and this is where I think people will turn on me. I put this Defence Force spend in the same category as all of those other things. I think that this is all critical stuff. But it doesn't feel like any of this is a considered, sensible financial decision, because they have given away money. They have borrowed to give away money. They have cut taxes. Like, if you can sit there and go, well, we need to spend some money on the Defence Forces, we need to spend money on the hospitals and all of the other things that I listed, now is not a good time for tax cuts. We've got really good debt loading at the moment, so why don't we just be honest and say, look, I'll even put on my blue hat here. You could even turn around and go, look, Labour ignored this stuff for way too long, and once again, we're the ones that have to make the decision, and we've made the decision. There's no tax cuts. We're borrowing because we need it, and this stuff is going to last for 50 years. You know, New Zealand's always been good at buying equipment and making it last and squeezing every cent out of it. So if we buy something, we're going to make sure it goes the distance, and we've made the right decision. But they haven't done that. They've just been gleeful about what feels like a snap decision that involves a lot of money. They're highlighting the wrong things for how we will use it. I mean, as someone that's keen on military stuff and that, I found it crass, the way that they were talking about it. It's just strange. We are not going to go toe-to-toe with China. We're just not. Like, the most action that these Seahawk helicopters are going to have is if we're on patrol in the Red Sea or something like that, or we're working in tandem with our other allies. This helicopter is not going to sink a Chinese aircraft carrier, no matter how much Judith Collins wants it. You know, it's a useful piece of equipment. I think it's the right choice of equipment for the New Zealand Defence Forces. I think it's a good decision. They've chosen the right type. They've chosen the right aircraft for the right reasons. The reason that the Boeing kept on breaking down is because it was second hand in 1990 when we bought it from a Dutch airline. We tried to make it do way more than it was ever designed for, and we tried to make it last much longer than it was ever designed for.
I just had this interesting thought. No New Zealand military helicopter has ever fired a missile. So that's a photo that's come with the One News story. That means there is no... what about, you think they would have done it in like war games though? You mean in actual action? So that means there's no helicopter pilot in New Zealand who's ever fired a missile. And now they've got these things that have got the Hellcats and the nuclear head, whatever.
We have had another missile. The Sea Sprites can fire missiles and torpedoes as well. We've been using a missile called the Penguin, which is a terrible name for a weapon of war.
That's too cute. That's too cute. What does it do? It goes in, it goes.
Yeah. Look, if you want me to put my military nerd hat on, this is the thing that makes me laugh. Your Hellfire missile has a range of 7 to 11 kilometers. The defensive suite on a Chinese frigate is somewhere closer to 25 to 30 kilometers. Like, it's just a weird thing to emphasize.
Chewy, I don't know why you would think that the chat would turn on you. The chat would turn? The chat would
Because
turn, right, would turn
because
on you.
we're a bunch of hippie greenies. And
Because what
don't
you're
wanna
saying,
see it.
what you're saying is basically what we said last time. Don't have any problems with the concept of New Zealand armed services or whatever. If something needs to be replaced, be replaced. One of the interesting tweets that came through, the chats was, but hang on, aren't our hospitals at our end of life as well? Why can't we find the money for that? You know, because
Look, the money will be found because it has to be found.
Because it's at the hospital's at the end of its life as well. But the thing that's stuck in my craw, and I think this is what you're saying, is that they're spending let's say $3 billion all up on this, yeah, at a time that they can't find any money for anything else. Now, if that $20 billion that we can just identify without even looking at our notes wasn't being given away in tax cuts, big tobacco, oil and gas, landlords, and they took $3 billion of that and did this, so there would be still some complaints, but certainly most people would well, you know, Army's got to have the equipment and they've budgeted for it. It's the fact that they have no money for anything that most of New Zealand deem not even important, but necessity, that necessitates life, quite literally in some sense. They don't have the money for that, but Judith Collins, and God help me, you can tell by that smile, has had her pet project funded by the money down the back of the couch. You will never convince me, looking at that smile, that this is not her pet project, and she is just not the cat that thinks she's got the cream, because she is the happiest thing that there has ever been to get helicopters purchased. Her name will be attached to them for the next 60 years.
Do you know who I miss when I think about Parliament and military matters? And
I do. He was the 2 and 2 IC for NZ First, wasn't he? What was his name?
Yeah, Ron Mark.
Ron Mark. Yeah.
Now, I guess that's kind of what I expect, or what I would hope for someone that making these decisions, someone that had been in the Defence Forces, who like this. This is why I find it so weird to have Judith Collins describing this helicopter. It feels like someone's just reading from the press release and not really understanding it, or regurgitating something that somebody else who does understand the stuff has told her about it. It's like a bullet point type thing. It's not an understanding of where it fits in an organization. It doesn't understand the actual true role that this thing would have. Whereas someone like Ron Mark, he had that experience and understanding, and I don't know if we've had anyone in the defence portfolio since that's had that. But yeah, look, I saw a comment going through that. Look, we can't afford this stuff. This is part of the conversation that I think needs to happen. Is we can afford this stuff and all of the other stuff that we've mentioned, if people were just fucking honest about when things needed to be replaced, how long it takes us to save for them, or what is the reason for borrowing, and are we borrowing for the right things? It needs to have a lifespan to justify the spend.
I wonder about Ron Mark, how he would function in this current New Zealand First. Because be careful, Chewy. You say something nice about a politician who's not on the left, the chat will go for you. They'll go for your throat. But he does seem to be perhaps a politician who wouldn't also fit within this current system. I don't know. Maybe every politician just slides into the system they're a part of. But he is, as they say, this is not your mum and dad's New Zealand First party. I wonder how he'd go in it.
Yeah, look, I certainly didn't agree with everything that he said or did, but I had respect for where he'd come from and the decisions that he made in terms of the defence portfolio, and I just don't think there has been someone that brought that knowledge to the table since.
Yeah, fair. All right, is there any chats that you want to get to before we sign off for the week?
Peter says odds on new frigates being before new ferries. Fucking hope not. Actually, talking about frigates, the Australians made an interesting decision. They are buying frigates from the Japanese, which was very much unexpected.
Interesting. So not America, because they've got
not Korea.
They've got some deals with America at the moment because how quickly Albanese folded a few. Trump commits a crime of politics every other day. So the 10 crimes of politics ago when Albanese just folded immediately, then it came out they've got quite a big financial deal at the moment going for their military deal. So interesting to know that they've moved.
Kiwi Bird says, we got new helicopters before new ferries and GTA 6. I would love to hear Judith Collins describe GTA 6 in the same way that she's describing that helicopter. What are we even getting ready for, and who are we getting ready to fight?
I'm not fighting anyone.
Yeah, look, in the defence spaces and the spaces that people are talking about military conflicts, there is a very strong belief that China is going to take a run at Taiwan within the next 5 to 10 years. And if you look at the stuff that is happening in the South China Sea between China and the Philippines, that's another potential flashpoint. In the Pacific, there are things that people are concerned about. Do I think Judith Collins at the controls of a helicopter is going to win the day? No. But it is something potentially that people in defence have to think of risk and think of what could happen. And I think something like that kicking off in the Pacific is something that we cannot ignore. So we need to be ready to work with our allies and all of that sort of stuff. Your best case scenario is we buy all of this stuff and we never use it. The worst case scenario is that we get dragged into something like this and we have to send Defence Force personnel with substandard equipment into an incredibly dangerous situation. So that is the balance. But it sticks in my craw that we have to play that off against other stuff that we need as well. There needs to be a sensible decision of, like New Zealand, there is not going to be any tax cuts because we need to spend. We've put off too much for too long, and that is defence, that is health, that is paying people properly. It is all the same thing, and I hate that
people doing big jobs
have
and big
to play
portfolios.
all of it off against each other.
We want a government that cares about how every single dollar is spent, because every single dollar the government spends is ultimately a dollar from your pocket.
True, he doesn't know what that means though. Mr. Arvid says, could we not get Corolla helicopters? Yeah, it is funny how this is discussed. Like we can't get proper ferries designed for our conditions. We have to scrimp and scrape and get something cheap and secondhand and all of that sort of stuff, and yet that conversation has not presented itself when we're talking about defence. It's strange. Lolly and Kibble scramble for the lapdogs. If those choppers were used, do we have the logistics to support them in their role? That is part of the price. So often, and the media didn't quite do this, is that they go, oh, it's X amount of dollars for 5 helicopters. They never seem to mention included in that price is spare parts, training, simulators, all of that sort of stuff. That's included as well. But yeah, that is all the super chats. And I think that's us for tonight, Pat.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes. Right. Big events. Oh, what, did you just stop at Seahawk? There's one more there?
No, that just popped up. There's a turntable ladder fire truck protecting you fellas down to Dunedin, built in 1987. There's a tray under it to catch the hydraulic fuel leak. Do Toyota make a Corolla fire appliance? Look, we just get a Hilux and put a wooden ladder on the back of it. Look, that is not exclusive to Dunedin as far as a product goes. The fire service has been banging on about the age and reliability of its fire appliance fleet from one end of the country to the other. And you can add that to the list of shit we need to spend money on. and you can add it to the list. The firefighters are talking about their pay as well. Sorry, not just their pay, their conditions. And the equipment that they use is key to that. When we get round to it, I'm sure the government will tell us how much the most highly paid firefighter is paid and imply that that's everybody that's worked there for more than 3 months. And they will not mention the dangerous, outdated, unreliable equipment that they have to deal with as well.
I just remembered something. Let's see if I've got it. I remembered that I had a TikTok to show people. Oh, I've got it. I'll show people. I've got a TikTok here. And I'm just going to label this TikTok, Why I'm Glad I Live in New Zealand. Okay? So you got that? Let's have a look at this. This is how we're going to wrap up. We wrap up with something sort of nice for the week to finish. Right, I'll turn that up. Here we go. We're just going to label this as we go off to the night. We're going to label this Why We're Happy We Live in New Zealand.
Oh my god! Get the out of here!
There's just a bear in their house if you're on the audio podcast.
Mom!
So every time I see a black bear like this, if it's not a friend, why is it friend-shaped?
I like the bit where it stands up and it's taller than the fridge, and then you really realise, oh look, here we go. Okay, that's an 8-foot bear.
I would die.
Yo, he's getting up.
It looks like it needs a cuddle.
It's too Wookiee shaped, is it? Is that the thing? It's like
No, it's got the round ears. It's got friendly ears.
He's right on.
Yeah.
He's up on the.
Look, these guys just need to realise that they live in a bear's house now. Oh, get off the counter.
That's the cat's job.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, look, if they had a small dog, that dog would be fighting that bear, and I think the bear would leave.
Seen those ones where the small dogs in the backyards were getting attacked by the bear, and then the small dog bark and the bear runs away.
Small dogs do not give any fucks. They don't know they're small.
All right. That's us for the night. Big protests this weekend, big meetups this weekend around the country. If you're someone who is, you're oh, sorry, I didn't mean to put that on. What did I just do to the stars? I don't even know. Anyway, I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. Gosh, I made some kind of error. Big meetups over the weekend if you're going to be a part of one. Is it 1 o'clock everywhere too? Is that kind of what they do? I know it's 1 o'clock in Dunedin. I'm pretty sure it's 1 o'clock in Christchurch.
No, it's different times, different places.
All right. So you can go to one in Dunedin and then get in your car and travel to the one in Christchurch. Does that work as well, or no? Maybe Judith could send us one of those helicopters and get us between the Free Palestine. That'd be good. Good work for the New Zealand Defence Force. All right, guys. Thanks for being with us this week. I appreciate that the couple of nights cover we did. Thanks to Emily for that. Thanks to all our guests who have come on as well. And it's probably time for us, Chewy, to head off into the deep blue yonder. Anything you want to wrap up with? I'm not asking for a tangent. I'm just saying anything you want to say before we push play?
Thank you for not crucifying me for liking helicopters from time to time, chat. I appreciate it.
If you had that, actually, there we go, chat. We just found Chewy's Christmas present. We'll get the same model of the same helicopter and he will put the same smile on his face.
Okay, so the other thing that annoyed me is it had the Australian markings on it. She didn't even bother to put the New Zealand ones on. It's lazy.
Lazy.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things
It is big hearing news. Nothing else from me. Anything you want to say to sign off the week, Chew? Anything you want? Any messages you want to get out there?
Just the Free Palestine stuff on Saturday. Have a look around and see what's on in the place where you live. Keep the pressure on.
All the best, whānau kids, and tomorrow night we'll see you again Monday night from 9 p.m. live for another edition of Big Hearing News. Hooroo!
Cheers, fam.